Thief! Thief! Carry am, go!
The sky was grey that morning, not just grey from clouds, but from something heavier, something that felt like a warning. In the heart of Ajangbadi, Lagos, the air smelled of diesel and dust as the streets woke up from its sleep. Vendors shouted prices at passers-by, buses honked impatiently, generators hummed, children darted through puddles left by last night's rain, and people went about their day. But in a few hours, that same street would burn with something darker called rage. In the middle of it all, Obinna walked briskly down the street, smiling faintly and greeting familiar faces, his faded yellow polo clinging to his damp skin. He was just 21, tall and lean, with the kind of face that still held traces of boyish innocence. He had just come from a menial job at a construction site. His pay of 2K was barely enough to support his widowed mother, but he worked with a quiet dignity, the sort that comes from hard work and a clean conscience. Obinna turned into Mama Uju's shop, a small wooden store cluttered with bags of rice, bread, and tomatoes stacked in baskets. The air inside was warm and thick, with the scent of palm oil. Obinna often came there to buy bread or chat briefly with the friendly shopkeeper before heading home. But that morning, Mama Uju's eyes were not friendly. They were different this time around. They darted from side to side, her lips trembling as she clutched her wrapper tighter around her chest. "Obinna," she said sharply, "you were here this morning, Abi?" "Yes, ma," he replied, surprised. "I came to buy bread. Why?" Her voice cracked. "The 10,000 naira I kept in the counter is gone. You were the only one here that time." The words struck Obinna like thunder. "Ah! God forbid, Mama Uju. I did not take anything." But Mama Uju wasn't listening. Her cry rose above the market noise, loud and shrill. "Ole! Ole! Thief! Oh! This boy don't carry my money." The sound spread faster than Hamatan fire. Heads turned. People came running, and within minutes, the narrow street swelled with a crowd. Traders, motorcyclists, passers-by, faces filled with anger, curiosity, and something darker. Someone grabbed Obinna by the arm. Another yanked him back when he tried to explain. "I didn't do it," he cried, his voice cracking. "Please, I swear, check my pockets." Rough hands shoved him to the ground. His palms hit the dirt hard, scraping against tiny stones. The world spun around him as voices rose, merging into a single thunderous chant. "Thief! Thief! Carry am go! Thief! Thief! Carry am go!" Obinna tried to rise, but a slap sent him sprawling again. The sting burned across his face. He looked up into eyes that no longer saw a man, but only a monster they wanted to destroy. "Mama Uju, please tell them," he begged. "I didn't take your money." But Mama Uju, now trembling with fear and shame, couldn't speak. The crowd had taken her pain and turned it into fury. It was no longer about 10,000 naira. It was about power, vengeance, and the strange satisfaction that comes from shared outrage. A man in a red cap shouted, "Make we teach am a lesson. Small pikin like this don dey already thief. Tomorrow, he go kill person." Another picked a stick. The first blow landed across Obinna's back. He gasped, choking on dust and disbelief. The second came harder, then stones, shoes, anything the mob could find. Obinna tried to cover his head, his body coiling like a wounded animal. "Please," he screamed, his voice hoarse. "I didn't do it." But the street had become a storm, and in that storm, truth no longer mattered. Somewhere in the chaos, a small boy tugged his mother's wrapper. "Mommy, he said he didn't steal." "Shut up," she hissed, dragging the boy away. "Don't talk when elders are talking." The mob's rage grew louder, heavier, feeding on itself. Each blow drew more blood and more cheers. Obinna's yellow polo was now stained red with his blood. His vision blurred. He could no longer tell which voice came from where. All he saw were faces, some familiar, some strange, but they were all twisted by hate. A woman shouted, "Bring a tire, make we burn am before police come." The voice sliced through the crowd like a knife. There was a pause, then quick movement. Someone ran to fetch the tire from a mechanic shop. Another returned with a jerry can of petrol. Obinna's heart pounded heavily. He tried to crawl backward, but a heavy boot slammed into his chest. He coughed, wheezing, tasting blood. He looked up again at the grey sky above, at the faces circling him like vultures, at the matchstick one man now held up with trembling fingers. And then, just before the fire touched the tire, a voice broke through the noise. "Wait!" The crowd froze, heads turned. A man had appeared at the edge of the street, breathless, eyes wide with panic. "It wasn't him," he shouted. "Obinna didn't steal the money." The match hovered in the air, the flames flickering dangerously close to the tire. Every eye turned to the stranger, every breath hung still. Then he said the words that would shatter the street. It was the woman's daughter. The flame dropped from the man's hand, just as the first drop of rain fell from the grey sky. For a moment, no one moved. The street, which was once alive with fury, now fell eerily silent. Only the faint hum of generators and the distant cry of a hawker pierced the thick grey air. The man who had shouted, the stranger, stood at the edge of the crowd, his chest heaving and his shirt soaked with sweat. His face was pale with horror. All eyes turned to him, even that of those who had seconds ago chanted for blood, now looked uncertain, their fists still raised but trembling. The matchstick that had been ready to ignite the tire now laid useless in the dirt, fizzled out by the drizzle that had begun to fall. "What did you say?" someone demanded. The man took a step forward, panting. "I said it wasn't him. Obinna did not take the money." He pointed towards the shop, his voice cracking. "I saw what happened. It was her daughter, Ngozi. She found the money on the counter and slipped it into her pocket. I saw it with my very own eyes." Gasps rippled through the mob. Heads turned sharply towards Mama Oju, who stood frozen with shock. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her daughter, a teenage girl with trembling hands, stood half hidden behind her, her eyes wide and glistening. "You mean Ngozi stole the money?" someone whispered. Ngozi broke. She fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't mean to. I was going to return it. I swear I was." The words fell like stones in the heavy air. The crowd's rage shattered into fragments of shock, disbelief, and guilt. For the first time, they looked at Obinna not as a thief, but as a boy. A boy lying motionless in the dirt, his body broken and bloodied, his yellow polo burnt at the edges from the near flames. His eyes opened weakly, confusion clouding the pain in his gaze. He could barely speak. His lips moved. I told you I didn't. Then he coughed, a deep choking sound that made a few people step back. Mama Uju let out a strangled cry and collapsed beside him, clutching his limp hand. Jesus, my son, what have we done? She wailed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her voice cracked through the crowd like lightning. Somebody help him, please! But no one moved. The same people who had swung sticks and hurled stones now stood paralyzed by shame. Some lowered their eyes, others began to murmur prayers beneath their breath, as if whispers could undo what rage had done. The man who had brought the petrol dropped the jerrycan and staggered backward, his lips trembling. God, forgive me, I didn't know. The drizzle turned into a steady rain, washing streaks of blood into the gutters. The air smelled of smoke, fear, and regret. Obinna tried to move, but the pain was unbearable. His vision faded in and out, like a flickering candle struggling against the wind. He could hear faint voices, his name, prayers, apologies, but they all sounded distant, like echoes in a dream. He thought of his mother, how she would be waiting at home, stirring a pot of soup, wondering why he was late. He wanted to tell her that he loved her. He wanted to tell her that he had done nothing wrong, but his throat burned, and his body couldn't obey him. Then, faintly, through the ringing in his ears, he heard sirens. The sound cut through the murmurs, growing louder. A few people scattered, afraid of the police's arrival. Others stayed, rooted, drenched, stunned by their own actions. When the police van finally pulled up, two officers jumped out, their expressions darkening as they took in the scene, the crowd, the petrol, the tire, and the nearly lifeless young man on the ground. Who did this? One officer shouted. There was silence. Only the rain answered. The officer's voice rose again. I said, who did this? No one spoke. The crowd that had once roared like a storm was now mute. Every face bowed down in shame. Mama Uju sobbed beside Obinna, rocking his limp body gently. He is innocent, she kept repeating. He didn't do anything. The officers exchanged grim looks. One knelt beside Obinna's subtly charred body, checking for a pulse. He felt something faint, barely there. He is still breathing, the officer muttered. We need to move fast. Let's put him into the car, the other said. The two police officers lifted Obinna carefully into the pickup truck. His body was limp like a wet cloth. A trail of blood mixed with rainwater followed as they carried him away. As the police van drove off, red lights flashing through the misty drizzle, the crowd stood in silence, their clothes drenched, their hearts heavy. Mama Uju's daughter, Ngozi, was still kneeling on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Her mother turned to her slowly. Her eyes were hollow and her voice was broken. Do you see what you've done? Do you see what your lie has caused? Ngozi's sobs deepened, each one cutting through the heavy air. I didn't mean to, she said. But meaning no harm had never saved anyone from the consequences of their actions. As the van disappeared into the fog, thunder rumbled low in the sky, like the heavens mourning the boy they had condemned. The crowd began to disperse, some in tears, others whispering prayers of forgiveness. But no one could erase the image of Obinna's body, burned, bleeding, and innocent. Mama Uju sat on the muddy ground, her wrapper soaked, her heart shattered. Her daughter's cries echoed in her ears, but she couldn't respond. She stared blankly at the street that still smelled of petrol and guilt. The rain kept falling, relentless, washing the streets, washing the blood, washing the sins no water could ever cleanse. And somewhere, far away in a moving van, Obinna's breath grew fainter with each second. His heartbeat is slowing, his world is fading, until all that remained was the rhythm of rain against metal. Then, silence. The world around Obinna was quiet, too quiet. The rhythmic beeping of machines and the faint murmur of voices floated through the sterile air of the hospital ward. Obinna's body lay still under the white bedsheet. His breathing was shallow, each inhale a battle against the pain. The nurse adjusted his IV drip, her eyes filled with pity. "This boy," she whispered to the doctor beside her. "He is so young. What did he even do?" The doctor's sigh was heavy. They said it was a case of jungle justice. He was accused of stealing 10,000 naira. He is innocent, apparently. The nurse's hand paused. "And the people who did this to him, what about them?" The doctor shook his head. "Most of them vanished before the police arrived," he said, and glanced at the chart, then at Obinna's fragile form. "We'll try our best, no doubt, but burns like these won't heal with medicine alone, and the internal injuries are intense." He didn't finish the sentence when a shrill, loud voice pierced the quiet atmosphere outside the ward. In between sobs, the voice said, "Please, let me see my son." It was Obinna's mother. Her dress was soaked from the rain, and her eyes were swollen from hours of crying. The police officer guarding the door hesitated at first and gave her a stern warning before letting her in after he realized that she was Obinna's mother. When Obinna's mother entered the ward where he was in, her legs nearly gave way. She rushed to his bedside, clutching his limp hand. "Obinna, my child!" Obinna's eyelids fluttered. Slowly, painfully, he turned his head to say, "Mama!" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm here, my son. Don't talk. Just rest." Obinna tried to smile, but it came out as a faint tremor of his lips. "I didn't do it, Mama. I swear." "Shh," she said, stroking his face. "I know, my son. I know. Everyone knows now." But Obinna wasn't listening anymore. His gaze had drifted towards the window where the faint sunlight struggled to pierce the grey clouds. "Mama," he whispered weakly, "will they ever stop hurting people like this?" Obinna's mother couldn't answer. The lump in her throat was too heavy, her grief too vast. She could only nod, even though she did not believe it. Obinna's fingers tightened slightly around hers, then loosened gradually. The beeping slowed, then stopped. The nurse rushed forward. The doctor followed, but within seconds, their eyes told her everything she feared. Obinna's mother's cry tore through the corridor, echoing down the hospital halls like a soul shattering. The boy, who had done no wrong, was gone. The news of Obinna's death spread faster than wildfire. The headline, "Innocent Boy Dies After Mob Attack," was on every news channel and radio station. It was splashed across social media and whispered in markets. The photo of Obinna, a quiet, hardworking young man, became a symbol of what the city had lost to anger and ignorance. The police later on returned to the streets where it had all happened. They arrested some of the men identified in videos recorded by bystanders and took them to the police station for interrogation. Mama Uju and her daughter were taken in for questioning. When she was asked why she accused him, Mama Uju broke down in tears. "I was desperate," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought he took it. I didn't mean for them to kill him." Her daughter Ngozi couldn't speak. She sat there in silence, her face pale and her eyes hollow. Guilt had become her shadow. The men who had beaten Obinna, the ones who swung sticks and threw stones, claimed they were only following the crowd. Everybody was shouting, "Thief," one said. "We didn't know," but the truth was simple. Ignorance is no excuse for cruelty. At Obinna's burial, the community gathered under a cloudy sky. His mother stood beside his grave, clutching a framed photo of him smiling in his yellow polo. Her tears fell silently as the pastor's voice rose above the sobs. "We are here today to bury a son, a brother, an innocent soul destroyed by our silence," the pastor said. "We must learn that justice is not in our hands, but in the hands of the law. We must learn that anger without truth breeds tragedy." The crowd listened, some crying and others feeling ashamed. The same faces that had watched Obinna born now bowed before his grave, haunted by guilt that no prayer could wash away. That night, graffiti appeared on the market wall near where it happened. In bold red letters, it read, "Say no to jungle justice. Say yes to humanity." The government promised to strengthen laws against jungle justice. Civil groups held marches demanding reform and public awareness campaigns. But promises are words, and words are fragile in a country where pain often fades faster than memory. Still, for those who had seen what happened that morning, the smoke, the screams, the grey sky, they would never forget. And Obinna's name became more than a tragedy. It became a warning. This story is not just about one boy. It is about the society we have built, one that condemns before it questions, one that punishes before it understands. Justice must never come from rage. It must come from truth. For when we let hate decide who is guilty, we all become murderers. Let Obinna's story remind us that innocence deserves protection, and that until jungle justice ends, none of us in Africa are safe from its fire. And perhaps one day, when the sky turns grey again over another busy street, someone will remember Obinna and choose mercy instead of the match. And to you who is watching this video right now, should in case you find yourself among an angry crowd, be that voice of mercy, speak reason, and save a life. If you enjoyed this story and would love to listen to more African folk tales, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever we upload a new video. I'm Jane of Moonlight Tales by Janey, and I look forward to engaging with you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.